Welcome to Fortune Forecast. I am Daisy, your hostess, and you are in my book playlist. We are now in part 4 of The Book of Life by Upton Sinclair. It was published in 1921 by the Payne Book Company out of Chicago. It is in the public domain. Part 4 is titled The Book of Society, and the author has taken some time to really attempt to address many aspects of society. So if you are new to my channel and you just found us at this video and would like to catch up on the other previous chapters, visit the book playlist and you will be able to grab those videos. Otherwise, I'm going to take a minute here for my narrator's comments before I get started. But if you're excited to get along, please go to the description and hit on that timestamp and you'll get on with the next chapter. I would say that in the Book of Society, the previous chapter probably was by far one of the most important chapters in this entire part 4, and possibly also in the Book of Life itself. But more so that in these times of our lives, we deal with money to make our way through life, and understanding that money and how that money is circulated, how that money is created in your government is very important. And in that particular chapter, the author talks about the control of credit and how it plays a part in either restricting or freeing industry. I would encourage anyone to take a minute, and I'll leave a link here on this particular video to take a look at the federalreserve.gov website and review it and look at the structure of the Federal Reserve System. Literally, that website is full of so many links and you could get lost there for days. They offer their financial statements, they offer information about policies and regulations, their calendar, just a lot of stuff that I've learned that sometimes you don't have to know anything, but if you keep looking at something long enough, it'll come to you. So let this rest with us as far as a conversation. Who controls credit today? The bankers. And so they say we have all these policies in place and checks and balances and oversight committees and this and that. Well, I'll share with you something that I experienced as a mayor. The frustration knowing that policies are in place, but there's an issue if those policies are not enforced. And what it means when there is an issue that arises when the enforcement has to be rendered on the part of the ones that are administering it. I know that's a double entendre, but I think that you know what I'm saying. So you may have people in your government that are doing things that are not so right. And what happens when the commissioners and say, oh, that wasn't bad. Don't worry, we can cover this up. It's no big deal. That's not right, folks. And I believe, because I saw it happen in a small government, I believe that is happening all across our nation. So it's not that money corrupts, but perhaps power. And that's why they kind of bring these two together. It's power and greed. And then you wonder, what's the psychology behind that when there's people involved? And then it goes back to how this author started with this book. And he started addressing the issues of morality. And this is where we come back now as we're ending these chapters and bringing the word trust back into this formula. So then let's try and bring this full circle as we get ready to go into the next chapter, as we look at the banking industry. And it is very important for us to understand how the laws surrounding money are designed. And as you may be well aware, you can check out some of these policies and laws by going to federalreserve.gov. Now, keep in mind, bankers are making money when they're loaning money. And the Federal Reserve dictates how much money they can keep in funds, which is really not a lot. I think currently it's only 10%, but don't quote me on that because with the federal government things change fast. But do check their website. And then just let this sit in your brain, what the author said. And this was 100 years ago. It says that the Federal Reserve only keeps 35% of the money in the bank. So think about that. The same money, now that the banks are rolling over to the feds, is now multiplying even more. And the thing is that when the feds decide to go and print more money because they say that they need more money, that creates an inflation for all of us. And guess what? It's the price of eggs. It's the price at the pumps. It's the price everywhere that goes up. We are the ones that in the end, and have always been the one to carry the burden. And one thing I've learned, that once these prices go up at the market, seldom do they ever come back down. So, what did I get out of that last chapter? It appears that if 100 years ago 1% of our outstanding money was real, today I think we're living on the illusion of that imaginary money. But I could tell you what is not an illusion, and they make sure that we know about it: the national debt. If you want to find out how much the national debt is, and apparently how many one of us is in debt to this national debt, I'll leave you the link below so you can check it out. I'm going to go ahead now and turn the page to the next chapter, The Control of Industry. Discusses various programs for the change from industrial autocracy to industrial democracy. The program of the railway workers for the democratic management of their industry is embodied in the Plum Plan. You may learn about it by addressing the weekly paper of the Railroad Brotherhoods, which is called Labor and is published in Washington, D.C. It appears that our transportation industry can be at once socialized because of a clause in the Constitution which gives the national government power over roads and communications. Through decades of mismanagement under the system of private greed, the railroads have been brought to such a financial condition that they will be forced into nationalization whenever we stop them from dipping their fingers into the public treasury. Under the Plum Plan, the government is to purchase the roads from their present owners, paying with government bonds. The management is to be under the control of a board consisting in part of representatives of the government and in part of the workers, this being a combination of the methods of socialism and syndicalism. The same program can be applied constitutionally to telegraphs and telephones, to interstate trolley systems, express companies, oil pipelines, and all other means of interstate communication and distribution. The Plum Plan also deals with coal and steel and other industries. These could not be nationalized without a constitutional amendment, but it appears that in the majority of the constitutions of the states are provisions that all corporate charters are held subject to the power of the legislature to amend, modify, or revoke the same. That gives us a right to take over these corporations through state action. The only preliminary is to elect state administrations which will represent us, instead of representing their corporations. Also, most state constitutions contain the provision that no corporation shall issue its stock or bonds except for money, labor, or property actually received. The word labor gives the opening wedge for the Plum Plan. The state can purchase these industries, giving bonds in exchange, and can issue to the workers labor stock, which stock will carry part control of the industry. Also, the Railroad Brotherhoods have started their own bank in Cleveland, Ohio, and it is proving an enormous success. Make note of this point. Every large labor union can have its own bank to finance its industries and its propaganda. Stop and consider how preposterous it is that the 5 million organized workers of the United States should deposit their hundreds of millions of savings in capitalist banks to be used to finance private undertakings which crush unions and hold labor in bondage. Let every big labor union have its own building, its own banking and insurance business, its own vacation camp in the country, its own school for training its future leaders. Also, let every labor council in every big city start a labor daily to tell the workers the truth and point the way to freedom. Let every farmers' organization follow suit, and let these groups get together to exchange their products upon a cooperative basis. Already, the railway men are arranging with the farmers to buy the farm products and distribute them cooperatively. They are getting together with the clothing workers to have the latter make clothing for them and with the shoe workers to make shoes. This is the cooperative movement, which has become the largest single industry in Great Britain and is the backbone of industrial democracy and sound radicalism. It is spreading rapidly in America now. It is taking the money of the people out of the control of the profit system and diverting it into the channels of public service. It is training men to believe in brotherhood instead of in greed. It is giving them business experience so that when the time comes, the taking over of our industrial machine will not have to be done by amateurs, but by men who know what cooperation is and how to make a success of it. This work will go on more rapidly yet when the workers have united politically and brought into power a government which will assist them instead of assisting the bankers. A most interesting program for the development of working class financial credit is known as the Douglas Plan, which is advocated by a London weekly, The New Age, and is explained in 2 books called Economic Democracy and Credit, Power, and Democracy by Douglas and Orridge. This program is, in brief, that the furnishing of credit shall become a function of organized labor, based upon the fact that the true and ultimate basis of all credit is the power of hand and brain labor to produce wealth. The labor unions, or guilds, shall pay the management of industry and pay capital for the use of the industrial plant, and shall finance production and new industrial development out of their credit power, their ability to promise production and to keep their promises. The Douglas Plan seeks to break the money trust by the method of syndicalism. Another method of breaking it, through state regulation of bank loans, you will find most completely set forth in an extremely able book, The Stranglehold by H.C. Cutting, an American businessman who you may address at San Lorenzo, California. Another method utilizing the third factor in industry, the consumer, is the method of banking by consumers' unions, which are the Raiffeisen banks, widely known in Germany, and a specimen of which exists in the single tax colony of Arden, Delaware. Those who wish to know about the cooperative bank or other forms of cooperation may apply to the Cooperative League of America, 2 West 13th Street, New York, whose president is Dr. James P. Warbase. Information concerning public ownership may be had from the Public Ownership League, 127 North Dearborn Street, Chicago. Also, from the Socialist Party, 220 South Ashland Boulevard, Chicago, and from the Bureau of Social Research of the Rand School of Social Science, New York. Also, I ought to mention the very interesting plan for social reconstruction set forth by Mr. King C. Gillette, inventor of the safety razor. This plan you may find in your public library in 2 encyclopedic volumes, Gillette's Social Redemption and Gillette's World Solution. The politician seeks to solve the industrial problem by means of the state, and the labor leader seeks to solve it by the unions. It is to be expected that Mr. Gillette, a capitalist, should seek to solve it by means of the corporation. He points out that the modern trust is the greatest instrument of production yet invented by man, and he asks why the people should not form their own trust, to handle their own affairs and to purchase and take over the industries from their present private masters. It is interesting to note that Mr. Gillette's solution is fully as radical and thoroughgoing as those of the state socialists or the syndicalists. The People's Corporation, which he projects and plans someday to launch upon the world, would be a gigantic consumers' union whose credit power would speedily dominate and absorb all other powers in modern society. It would make us all stockholders and give us our share of the benefits of social productivity. End of chapter. Stay with me. I will go ahead and move to the next chapter right here in this video. If you could be kind, take a minute, hit that like button. Let me know you were here. Leave me a comment. Thank you so much. Moving on. The New World describes the cooperative commonwealth, beginning with its money aspects, the standard wage, and its variations. It has been indicated that the new society will be different in different countries and in different parts of the same country, in different industries and at different times. No one can predict exactly what it will be, and anyone who tries to predict it is unscientific. But every man can work out his own ideas of the most economical and sensible arrangements for a cooperative society. In these final chapters, I set forth my ideas. One of the first things people ask is, will there be money in the new society? Or, how will labor be rewarded and goods paid for? I answer that there will be money, and the business methods of the new society will be so nearly the same as at the present that in this respect you would hardly realize there had been any change. The only difference will be that in the new society you will be paid several times as much for your labor, or if you prefer to put it the other way, you will be able to buy several times as much with your money. Why should we waste our time working out systems of credit cards when we already have a system in the form of gold and silver coins and paper currency? Why should we bother with labor checks when we have a banking and clearinghouse system understood by everyone but the illiterate? The only difference we shall make is that nobody can get gold and silver coins or paper currency except by performing labor to pay for them. Nobody can have money in the bank and draw checks against it until he has rendered to society an equivalent amount of service. When you have money in the New World, you will spend it wherever you please and for whatever you please, the only difference being that the price you pay will be the exact labor cost of producing that article, with no deduction for any form of exploitation. As I wrote 16 years ago in the Industrial Republic, you will be able to get, if you insist upon it, a 7-legged spider made of diamonds, and the only question society will ask is, have you performed services equivalent to the material and labor necessary to the creating of that unusual article of commerce? Of course, society won't put it to you in that complicated formula. It will simply ask, have you got the price? Which you observe is exactly the question society asks you at present. The next thing that everybody wants to know is, shall we all be paid the same wages? I answer yes and no, because there will be 3 systems of payment. There will be a basic wage, which everybody will get for every kind of useful service necessary to production. This will be, as it were, the foundation of our economic structure. On top of this will be built a system of special payments for special services which are of an intellectual nature and cannot be standardized and dealt with wholesale. In addition, there will be for a time a third arrangement applying to agriculture work, which is in a different stage of development and to which different conditions apply. Let us take first our standard wage. The census of our utopian commonwealth reveals that we have 10 million able-bodied workers engaged in mining, manufacturing, and transportation. This including, of course, office work and management, everything that enters into these industries. By scientific management, the best machinery, and the elimination of all possible waste, we find that they produce $80 million worth of goods an hour. A portion of this we have to set aside to pay for the raw materials which they do not produce, and for the upkeep of the plant, and for margin of error, what our great corporations call a surplus. We find that we have $50 million per hour left, and that means that we can pay for labor $5 per hour or $20 for the regular 4-hour day. This is our standard wage, received by all able-bodied workers. But quickly we find that our industries are not properly balanced. A great many men want to work at the jobs which are clean and pleasant, such as delivering mail, and very few want to work at washing dishes in restaurants and cleaning the sewers. There is no way we can adjust this except by paying a higher wage or by reducing the number of hours in the working day, which is the same thing. The only other method would be to have the state assign men to their work, and that would be bureaucracy and slavery, the essence of everything we wish to get away from in our cooperative commonwealth. What we shall have, so far as concerns our basic industries, is a government department, registering with mathematical accuracy the condition of supply and demand in all the industries of the country. Our demand for shoes is increasing. For some reason or other, 1,000 more shoe workers are needed. Therefore, the price of labor in the shoe industry is increased 5 cents per day, or whatever amount will draw that number of workers from other occupations. On the other hand, there are too many people applying for the job of driving trucks. Therefore, we reduce slightly the compensation for this work. There are more men who want jobs in Southern California than in Alaska. Therefore, the payment of the same grade of work in Alaska has to be higher. All this is not merely speculation. It is not a matter of anybody's choice. It is an automatic, self-adjusted system subject to precise calculations. The only change from our present system is from guesswork to exact measurement. At present, we do not know how many shoes our country will require next season. Neither do we know how many shoes are going to be made. Neither do we know how many people can make shoes, nor how many would like to learn, nor how many would like to quit that job and take to farming. It would be the simplest matter in the world to find out these things. Far simpler than it was to register all our possible soldiers and examine them physically and mentally and train them and feed them and ship them overseas to can the Kaiser. Of course, we drafted the men for this war job, but in the New World, nobody's drafted for anything. It is any man's privilege to starve if he feels like it. It is his privilege to go out into the mountains and live on nuts and berries if he can find them. Nobody makes him go anywhere or makes him work at anything, unless, of course, he is a convicted criminal. To the free citizen, all that society has to say is, if he buys any products, he must pay for those products with his own labor and not with some other man's labor. Of course, he may steal or cheat, as under capitalism. Our New World has laws against stealing and cheating and does its best to enforce them. The difference between the capitalist world and our world is merely that we make it impossible for any man to get money legally without working. Under these conditions, the average man wishes to work, and the only question remaining is, how shall he work? If he wants to work by himself and in his own way, nobody objects to it. He is able to buy anything he pleases, whether raw materials or finished products. If he wants to buy leather and make shoes after his own pattern, no one stops him, and if he can find anyone to buy these shoes, he can earn his living in that way. He is able to get land for as long a time as he wants it by paying to the state the full rental value of that land, and if he wants to farm the land, he can do so and sell his products. As a matter of theory, he is perfectly free to hire others to farm the land for him or with him. There is no law to prevent it. Neither is there any law to prevent his renting a factory and buying machinery and hiring labor to make shoes. But as a matter of practical fact, it is impossible for him to do this because the community is in the business of making shoes, and on an enormous scale, with great factories run democratically by the workers, and there is very small chance of any private businessman being able to draw the workers away from these factories. The community factories have all the latest machinery. They apply the latest methods of scientific management, and they turn out standard shoes at such a rate that private competition is unthinkable. Of course, there may be some special kind of shoes involving an intellectual element in which there can be private competition. This kind of manufacture is covered in our second method of payment. But before we discuss it, let us settle the problem of our most important basic industry, which is agriculture. End of chapter. Before you head over to the next video, hit that like button. And if you like what you see and you hear on this channel, please do, I invite you to subscribe.